Hey guys, 2020 is coming to an end, and I wanted to end it with a bang. Today we are going to be doing an Is Stupid, but not only are we doing an Is Stupid, it is on a returning subject, Turkey Tom. Turkey Tom has recently gotten himself into a lot of controversy, and I want to briefly cover why Turkey Tom is stupid. So let's get into this today on DHT. So, the first thing I want to get out of the way is this video is not intended to be a dissection of Turkey Tom's content. There are plenty of videos like that out there, and if you want to watch those, I'll put a couple in the description down below. This video is intended to be a dissection of one of the biggest problems I have with Turkey Tom. That is, him randomly calling people pedophiles. Because in case you didn't know this, calling people pedophiles randomly is not a good thing. Now, you can claim that it is humorous to call people pedophiles, but I would argue that calling someone a pedophile, unlike calling them literally anything else, has the potential of completely ruining their life and their career. So I would refrain from calling someone a pedophile unless you 100% know they are guilty. Unfortunately, Turkey Tom does not follow that advice. Turkey Tom calls people pedophile whenever he feels like it, and I have multiple examples to prove this. Now, the first example I want to give is Spoctor theory. Now, in case you didn't know about the whole Spoctor drama, Spoctor was a YouTuber who is accused of being a weirdo by a woman named Pentagram and a couple other people. These rumors ended up being proven false, and Spoctor was proven innocent. So Spoctor slowly gained back the reputation he had lost. Well, let's watch this clip from Turkey Tom from a couple years ago.
Well, there are various examples like Spoctor theory, the guy who was getting weird with little kids, Pentagram, the girl who falsely accused that guy of being a pedophile.
As you can see in this clip from Turkey Tom, it seems like he's insinuating that Spoctor is still declared a weirdo, and from his wording, it seems like he's saying that Pentagram accused Just a Robot of being a pedophile falsely. So I don't know if it's poor editing on his end, I don't know if it was a setup to some joke, to which his monotone voice fucking ruined it. I have no clue what he was intending here. I can only take away that he is calling Spoctor a pedophile and saying that Just Robot got falsely accused. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. That's just what I take from it, from the images on screen matching up to the audio. Next, we are going to talk about one of Tom's most controversial videos that he's ever made. That being one of his videos on Mr. Enter. This isn't his first video on Mr. Enter, it isn't even his second. If I'm remembering right, it's his third video on Mr. Enter. He keeps deleting his videos, so I don't know which one it is. I could be wrong. But in this video on Mr. Enter, Tom decided to call Mr. Enter a pedophile.
I have a feeling that Enter's idea of a thank you video was him stripping down nude and sending people pictures of his little Johnny to the kids who pay money to see his show.
If it wasn't bad enough that he called him a pedophile once, he did it again.
With not even 300,000 subscribers, for someone who has never made an animation his entire life and has never shown that he is capable of producing one piece of good writing, either from his reviews, his atrocious book, or his somewhat pedophilic show concept.
And if that wasn't bad enough, he did it a third time.
I feel like this is Enter sort of projecting, telling his audience preemptively that he's a creep or a horrible person of some kind before he gets outed for it by someone else. I mean, not saying he is necessarily, even though he has done some rather pedophilic illustrations in his past.
Okay, he may have done it 3 times, but I'm sure Turkey Tom's intentions for covering Mr. Enter were good. I'm sure that he doesn't have any spite going into this. I'm sure he's doing this just because he wants to spread awareness, right?
And truth be told, I didn't even want to make this video, but oh wait, yes I did, because once again Mr. Enter has shown that he is an incompetent fool who has no idea what he's doing whatsoever.
Oh no, Turkey Tom is just an arrogant prick, and he covered Mr. Enter because he's trying to bully someone. What a shock, I would have never guessed that. Now, I am perfectly fine with people bullying each other. Make fun of someone for the way they talk, for the way they look, for the way their name is spelled. Make fun of them for whatever you want to. But I think it's different making fun of someone someone for these attributes and calling someone a pedophile. In my opinion, I don't think that you should be throwing around labels like this that have the potential to ruin someone's life. Now, after the whole Mr. Enter thing, Tom was basically backed into a corner and forced to apologize to Mr. Enter, and a lot of people would think that's where his pedophile claims would stop. But no, it's not where it would stop, because Turkey Tom never learns his lesson. He instead runs away and then does the shit again. And a good example of that is with Digibro. Now, I don't like Digibro. Digibro's a piece of shit. He's a weirdo. But the one thing I wouldn't call Digibro definitively is a pedophile. Turkey Tom did call him a pedophile. Let's play that clip.
As it turns out, Digi here is a self-admitted and proud lover of children, or as he calls it, a lolicon. Essentially what this means is that he is sexually attracted to lollies, or little anime girls, something which he seems to proudly state considering that he posts about it so often on his Twitter, and actively defends pedophilia as if it is okay and should be accepted by society.
So Turkey Tom shows screenshots, and the screenshots does not actually show him defending pedophilia. It instead has him discussing lolicon. Now, the internet is still debating on if lolicon is considered pedophilia, and I know some courts have already decided that it does count as pedophilia, but there are plenty of countries in the world that doesn't consider it pedophilia and doesn't consider it to be a crime. So the fact that Turkey Tom is going to call Digi a pedophile definitively, despite him only admitting to liking anime girls, is a little bit dishonest. I don't think that's a fair thing to do to him, and I don't think that you should be willing to throw around this label so willy-nilly like you do. Now let's move on to the big thing that everyone wanted me to talk about, that being the pyro accusations. I have a lot of clips ready for the pyro accusations, and I've already decided that I'm only going to be covering one of Turkey Tom's claims from his pyrocynical video. That being the claim that I can 100% prove is false as of now. That being, Tom said that Pyro knew that the kid he was talking to was 15 years old. This is a very important argument because if Pyro knows that the kid was 15, that means that Pyro actually committed a crime. So let's hear what Turkey Tom has to say.
And Pyro, I know you've been nice to me in the past, and I was very glad to see someone who I looked up to be friendly to me, and this is probably burning a big bridge, but I'm not going to sit here and lie about what you did. Pyrocynical, at age 19, was messaging a 15-year-old boy and using him as an opportunity for sexual gratification. He knew his age at the time, and after the fact, he lied about it in a terrible Reddit post because he knew it was exactly what his audience wanted. There really isn't any debate about that, and it is completely fair to call him a weird, creepy guy. He is by all accounts a freak, and the people who defend him are either extremely dumb or willfully ignorant. I don't know which is worse.
As you can see, Turkey Tom gave no proof that Pyro knew that the kid was 15 years old. Instead, he just said it. And I guess that's enough for his audience to believe it. He doesn't have to have any damning proof that Pyrocynical knew he was 15. He can just say it, according to this clip from his first video. Well, that was just the first video in this 3-part series. Maybe in the second video, he will actually have damning proof that Pyro knew the kid was 15. Well, let's play a clip from his second video.
Here, we see Ivory not only say that he is a minor, but also a message of him clearly sending his Twitter bio with his age in it to Pyrocynical, at which point he would have been 16 years of age, and Pyrocynical would have been 20. In the newer leaked messages between Ivory and Ida, before he turned 16, we see her acknowledge that he is clearly 15 years of age, showing that he wasn't lying to her at the very least about his age. Not only this, but the DMs seem to be alluding to Pyro and Ivory forming some kind of relationship at the time. Ivory says that Pyro is talking about more real-life stuff. But okay, how bad could it be? We don't know the full intent of these messages, right? Well, it gets worse. Here, Ida clearly says that she doesn't think it is unrealistic for Pyro, at age 19, to be in a relationship with Ivory at age 15. They both clearly acknowledged Ivory's age just minutes ago in these messages.
As you can see, he still has no proof that Pyro knew the kid was 15, and instead says because Pyro's girlfriend, who isn't even his girlfriend at the time, she would go on to be his girlfriend later, knew that the kid was 15, that means that Pyro had to know from her, because Turkey Tom is a mind reader, I guess. He is a psychic. He knows these type of things. He's the That's So Raven of the commentary community. He can actually determine if you ever had a conversation, even if there's no proof to that conversation actually happening. What I would need in order for me to believe this crazy idea is a DM from Pyro to his girlfriend saying that he knows, or a DM from Pyro's girlfriend to this person saying they told Pyro. But you don't show either of these DMs. So right now what you are doing is assuming, and you should never assume when it comes to situations like this, when it comes to labels like these, when it comes to accusations like these. So we've already established that Turkey Tom has no evidence that Pyro knew that the kid was 15. Well, instead of presenting us with some type of evidence, Turkey Tom instead tries to form a hypothetical. Let's play out his hypothetical argument.
So, for Pyro to not know Ivory's age, 5 conditions need to be met. 1. Pyrocynical never once saw the initial DM from Ivory saying that he was a minor. 2. Pyrocynical never once saw the DM where Ivory sent him his Twitter profile. Pyrocynical, who at the time was expressing interest in a relationship with Ivory, which was corroborated by Pyrocynical's at the time soon-to-be girlfriend, still never knew Ivory's age, and an age which she thought would not dissuade him from being in a relationship with Ivory. 4. Pyrocynical never saw any of the tweets of Ivory explicitly saying that he was 15 years old, on an account that he followed and interacted with very regularly. 5. Somehow, outside of these instances, Ivory never mentioned his age once in the presence of Pyrocynical. As you can see, these conditions are a little ridiculous, and they're kind of where I rest my case.
When it comes to situations like this and accusations like this, you don't want to do this. This is probably the worst thing that you can do, is set up a hypothetical, because there's no way to 100% prove that Pyro didn't know. Instead, you're setting up a set of circumstances that will lead your audience to think that he knew, because you're convincing them that he did know. Now, I know that you'll hide behind the guise of, I didn't 100% say anything, but that's just a manipulation tactic so then you can get out of accusing someone of doing something without actually having to accuse them. If you put on your big boy pants and did enough research, you should be secure in saying something, but instead you knew you were going to get called out, so you decided to be weaselly in this video and never 100% say anything. Or at least I would say that if you didn't 100% say something in your first video before you started being a weasel.
Pyrocynical, at age 19, was messaging a 15-year-old boy and using him as an opportunity for sexual gratification. He knew his age at the time, and after the fact, he lied about it in a terrible Reddit post because he knew it was exactly what his audience wanted. There really isn't any debate about that.
So, this hypothetical is worthless, and it seems like to me you're just too cowardly to admit to the thing that you think about Pyro. So now let's jump over to Turkey Tom's third video on Pyrocynical. In this video, he decided to respond to Pyrocynical's response to his Google Doc. And in this video, he decides to double down on his accusations. He decides to double down on his stupidity. So let's watch a clip from this video.
Pyro's strongest point from the video comes from the idea that the minor DM came after Ivory had turned 16, which he claims nullifies it.
As for the other message, I don't remember seeing this message, and I'm not sure why it's being used as proof that I knew he was 15, because if you compare the dates, this message was sent 2 months after he sent me his link with his age in bio.
And I would concede on this point if Pyro had stopped talking to Ivory once he learned of the age gap, which he didn't, and Pyro admits this in the video.
In retrospect, I never should have continued the furry stuff with him once I learnt of his age, even though at the time I didn't see it as a problem.
As you can see, Pyrocynical comes out swinging, saying that what I've been saying this whole video, Turkey Tom can't prove that he knew the kid was 15. And instead of just admitting that he was wrong and giving up on that point, Turkey Tom instead tries to manipulate his audience yet again by saying that Pyrocynical should have stopped talking to the kid when he knew he was 16. Now, this is made to deliberately trick his audience, because people will point out that 16 is a minor, and he wants you to know that 16 is a minor, so you'll think that Pyrocynical is bad because he is an adult. Not only are there only a few years between Pyrocynical and the kid, that being 4 at max, it actually turns out that the age of consent in both Pyro's country and the kid's country is 16. So that would mean that the kid was legal in both of their countries, and if the kid is legal in both of their countries, no crime was committed. Now, am I for the age of consent being 16? No, but I'm pointing out that that legally Pyrocynical did nothing wrong. Now, you still could make the argument that Pyrocynical talked to a 15-year-old. That's fucked up, right? Well, morally it is kind of fucked up, but legally speaking, Pyrocynical did not know the kid's age. Now, should he have asked for it? Yes, but he didn't. So because Pyrocynical didn't know that the kid was 15, he didn't commit any crime. It's only illegal if you know that you're talking to someone who cannot consent and then continue being sexual with them. Pyrocynical did not know the person's age, therefore he didn't commit a crime. But not only did Turkey Tom double down on this argument, he also doubled down on the really stupid argument that because Pyrocynical went on to date one of the people involved, that means that she had to tell him at some point.
Additionally, the idea that simply because he wasn't dating Ida at the time, she would have no reason to talk about Ivory's age to him is kind of laughable. Pyro frames this as if they were barely friendly at the time, when Ida clearly says that they were calling every other day in DMs, and we can see group chats from this time when they were all together. Art from 4 years ago, where she draws art reflective of his fetish, is also publicly available online. His argument here is basically that despite the fact they knew each other, were in group chats together, Ivory had talked about his age with other people, including people they both knew, was very vocal about his age on Twitter, that he still just didn't know and was somehow hiding it from Pyrocynical. And hey, it's fine if you disagree, but a lot of people see this as circumstantial enough to think that he must have known. It's not irrational.
Doubling down on this point was really dumb of Turkey Tom, because not only was this a bad point to begin with, it instead makes it look like he's not willing to admit that anything that he theorized is wrong. There is no definitive proof that she told Pyro that the kid was 15. There is no definitive proof that Pyro talked to her about the kid's age. You cannot prove any of this shit, so it's pointless to be doubling down and refusing to admit that you could be wrong. It is stupid to continue pushing this argument when it has no weight behind it. If you thought that everything up until this point was dumb, well, let me show you something even worse. Here's a blatant example of Turkey Tom trying to manipulate his audience.
And in the follow-up document I released about it, I made the claim that I didn't really know either way, leaving it up for the readers to decide. Is Pyrocynical a groomer? While I first stated no, after these new leaks, I don't feel comfortable saying no. That being said, Ivory's basic message can be legitimately proven to be true. When he was 19 years old, Pyrocynical messaged a 15-year-old sexually. Pyro frames this as a disingenuous move on my part.
This document is cowardly. I mean, like, the ending is no exception. Like, they don't even definitively state if I groomed anyone. They just leave enough room for people to draw that conclusion themselves without openly saying.
But in reality, this was me doing my best to put all of the information on the table and allow some room for interpretation for what people think. I intentionally didn't make a judgment call, and I tried to make more non-definitive statements in the document as more information was, and still is, coming out. I wanted anyone to be able to draw their conclusions about the topic. This is not malicious or cowardly in any way, as Pyrocynical claims.
As you can hear by that clip, Turkey Tom says that he never made a judgment call. But what he actually says is, I never made a judgment call in that document. And the reason why he has to say that is he knows people will call him out on making a definitive statement in his part 1 video.
Pyrocynical, at age 19, was messaging a 15-year-old boy and using him as an opportunity for sexual gratification. He knew his age at the time, and after the fact, he lied about it in a terrible Reddit post because he knew it was exactly what his audience wanted. There really isn't any debate about that.
As you can hear from that clip I just played, he 100% said that Pyro knew the age of this person. He says that Pyro did do this stuff, even though he goes on to say that he didn't make any definitive claims. But because he knows he'll be called out, he had to say, I didn't make any definitive claims in that document. Well, that document would go on to be the part 2 video. He reads it out verbatim in his part 2 video. In the part 1 video, he does make a judgment call. He does 100% say that Pyro did this. So it doesn't matter what he says in part 2. It doesn't matter what he says in part 3. Unless he admits that he's flat out wrong, he still made a judgment call. Now, maybe if Turkey Tom did this just once, you could say that it might have been poor wording on his end. Or maybe he just didn't fully think this through. This isn't proof that he's trying to manipulate his audience. Well, he did it twice in the exact same way.
The accusation of Pyrocynical being a pedo or a groomer has been dropped for weeks by most people, and I have rarely seen anyone of importance saying this. A few people may assert it or imply it, and I want to take control of this right now and say that I don't support anyone calling him a pedo, because there's no adequate evidence to say that. And claiming that I have made false allegations against Pyrocynical is simply untrue. untrue. My document points to a body of circumstantial evidence that leads me to believe, in tandem with other situations, that he knew Ivory's age.
As you can hear from that clip, Turkey Tom pulls the exact same argument he just did by saying that he didn't make any false claims in his document, knowing that he already made false claims in his video. Turkey Tom is deliberately wording himself to where it sounds like he's not lying, to sound like he's not being dishonest, when in reality he had always thought that Pyrocynical was guilty of what he was accused of doing. But instead of just admitting this and saying that he was wrong, he instead decides to double down, because Turkey Tom has always doubled down on this bullshit. So the argument I have been making throughout this video is that Turkey Tom can't handle criticism, that Turkey Tom can't admit when he's wrong. Instead of just owning up to his faults, he decides to double down and triple down until people believe him. Well, at one point in this video, he decides to humor Pyrocynical.
Additionally, Pyro's point about him being suspended on Twitter was fair, and it made a few of the points in my document significantly weaker. A decent portion of the document was dedicated to claiming that Pyro knew the age when he was 15. Admittedly, Pyro did a good job of defending himself from that in this case. However, when he was 16, Pyro admitted to having known about his age and continuing to talk to him in his video. And even apart from that, he doesn't even come close to making everything incorrect. At the time that the original screenshots were released, Pyrocynical never explicitly stated in his Reddit response that he kept talking to Ivory, simply that he didn't have his age in his bio until he had turned 16. This is because he felt he didn't have to, so his fans gave him the benefit of the doubt and assumed that he had stopped talking to him. But once more evidence came out in my videos, he had to admit it. There was no tiptoeing around it. And my document itself is a small portion of this greater picture.
As you can hear by that clip, Turkey Tom kinda humors Pyrocynical's argument, but he doesn't actually admit that Pyrocynical is right. Pyro points out that Turkey Tom can't prove that he knew the kid was 15 when he was 15, but instead of just owning up to that and dropping the argument, he decides to continue to push that he talked to the kid when he was 16. And as I brought up earlier, 16 is the age of consent, and instead of just admitting that he is wrong, he decides to try to push that Pyrocynical is fucked up for talking to someone sexually who can legally consent. So this is obviously a manipulation tactic by Turkey Tom to convince his audience that he is right, even though he's been proven to be wrong by Pyrocynical multiple times now. And if those takes weren't bad enough for you, there's a point in one of Turkey Tom's videos where he flat out hypothetically calls Pyrocynical a predator.
Are you so hung up on this idea that you will not put forth the effort to condemn someone who did something demonstrably more harmful? I don't know about you, but I have much more hatred for someone exhibiting predatory behavior than I do for someone who wants Twitter likes.
Now, you could say that Turkey Tom still had the best of intent when going into the situation. You could say that he still really cared about what was going on and wasn't doing this just because he's a spiteful bastard who decided to attack Pyrocynical. Well, let me play this clip to change your mind.
I can't wait until someone with even more damning accusations and even more proof than Ivory comes out, and dipshits like prison mate Luke either justify what they did or do mental gymnastics to lie about what actually happened.
As you heard in that clip, Turkey Tom said that he hopes that Pyrocynical does get busted, that he hopes that more people do step forward, just so he can rub it in the faces of the people who are defending Pyrocynical. That really shows that he has good intentions throughout this whole drama, doesn't it? And those were all of my main arguments. I covered the Spoctor stuff, I covered Mr. Enter, I covered Digibro, and I covered Pyro. Before we wrap things up, I want to play a clip from both Pyrocynical and Mr. Enter, where they talk about how they feel about Turkey Tom calling them a pedophile. So let's play that clip.
Now, really good closing note here for anyone that is still confused to any degree. If your accusation is solely Pyrocynical is a complete degenerate and should have not had these conversations with someone that he didn't realise was 15, you win. I can't dispute that. But if you've either insinuated, contributed, or directly called me a paedophile who groomed someone knowing that they were 15, that is a completely false claim.
People have both been killed and killed others over that exact accusation. And when you get out of high school, making claims like those, either in real life or even on the internet, can bite you in the ass. It's called slander, and you can be sued for it. I know that you're thinking that what you do on the internet has no consequences, but it does. By claiming that I'm a pedophile when I'm not, gives me the ability to sue you.
Now, I have a really strong feeling that Turkey Tom fans will end up watching this video and saying that Turkey Tom can handle criticism, that Turkey Tom isn't a petty, spiteful bastard, that Turkey Tom will listen to what we're saying, and that he will care and will go on to improve. Well, I have a feeling that he doesn't care, and I have a strong suspicion that he won't watch this video, and that he won't take any of the criticism that's being thrown at him. If you want some proof, watch this clip.
I've also seen a lot of people saying that I don't respect criticism when it harms my reputation, but I'd argue that pretty much all criticism can harm your reputation if people take it a certain way, so what the fuck are you trying to say? There are points during which I've said, hey, I shouldn't have called that self-conscious girl fat. I probably should have acknowledged it in my video. I shouldn't have compared her to the Michelin Man. I shouldn't have joked about this guy being a pedophile and then had the jokes fall flat. But there are other points where I say, oh wait, this guy is fucking dumb. I'm not going to change anything based on this video that I just saw about me because he comes off like a jackass who doesn't know what he's talking about.
And that was everything I wanted to talk about involving Turkey Tom. I think after everything I've told you about, all the examples I've brought up, it's safe to say that Turkey Tom is stupid. Hopefully you guys like this video. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you really like it, share it. And if you want to see more, then subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and bye.